I paid for my brother's dream wedding, every last cent. But when they told me I wasn't invited, I didn't get angry. I got even. It helps the story grab attention fast before the long narration begins. Want me to make one? You know that gut-wrenching feeling when someone you love, your own flesh and blood, utterly betrays you? When they take your kindness, stomp all over it, and then act like you're the problem? Yeah, that's my story, and trust me, they had no idea the storm they were brewing. Let me take you back to the beginning. My brother Jake and I, we've always had this complicated relationship. As kids, we were inseparable, but somewhere along the way, things shifted. He became the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. Our parents, bless their hearts, just couldn't see past his perfect facade. They'd shower him with praise, excuse every single one of his screw-ups, and genuinely act like he walked on water. Me? I was the responsible one, the one who always had to understand, to sacrifice, to pick up the pieces when Jake did something incredibly selfish. But despite all of it, every single bit, I still loved him. He was my brother, and I genuinely wanted to be a good sibling. So, when he announced he was getting married, I saw it as a chance. A chance to really show up for him, to be there. Jake and his fiancée, Emily, had this dream wedding all planned out. You know, the kind you see in magazines? The lavish venue, the gourmet catering, the stunning decorations, Emily's dream dress, the perfect flowers, the whole 9 yards. Only one tiny problem. They couldn't actually afford any of it. They were stressed out of their minds, and even with our rocky history, I saw it. I wanted to do something nice, something truly generous. So, I made them an offer, a big one. I told Jake I'd cover all the wedding expenses. Not a loan, not a split payment, not a partial contribution. I would pay for everything. It was a massive amount of money, a significant chunk of my savings. But I thought, hey, it's my brother. It's a once-in-a-lifetime event. If I can make him happy, truly happy, why wouldn't I? Jake was over the moon. Emily cried tears of joy, hugging me like I was her long-lost savior. My parents, for once, gushed about how incredibly generous I was. And you know what? It felt good. It felt like, finally, for once, I was genuinely appreciated. Like I belonged, like my efforts mattered. But then, slowly, subtly, everything changed. As the wedding planning continued, I started noticing weird little things. Whenever I'd ask about my role in the wedding or offer to help with specific details, I'd get these vague, non-committal answers. At first, I brushed it off. Oh, they're just busy, I thought. Weddings are chaotic. But as the weeks melted into months, a cold, unsettling feeling started to fester in the pit of my stomach. Something just wasn't right. Then, about a month before the big day, the bombshell landed. It wasn't even a phone call. No, it was a cold, emotionless text message from Emily. It just popped up on my phone, casual as anything. Hey, just wanted to let you know that we've decided to keep the wedding small and intimate. We hope you understand. Thanks again for everything. I read it once, then twice. A third time, my brain just couldn't process it. Small and intimate, I thought. I wasn't being invited to a wedding that I was paying for. The sheer audacity, the coldness of it just hit me. I immediately called Jake. He didn't pick up, so I texted him, demanding to know what the hell was going on. Hours crawled by, each minute feeling like an eternity, before he finally responded. His message was just as dismissive, just as infuriating. Look, we just don't think you fit the vibe of the wedding. It's nothing personal. Hope you're not mad. Not mad. Not mad. I was fuming. My own brother, my golden child brother, had the absolute gall to take my money, let me bankroll his entire dream wedding, and then tell me I wasn't good enough to even be there. It was beyond personal. My blood was boiling. I needed answers, real answers. So I called their parents. I expected them to be outraged, to champion my cause, to demand an explanation from Jake. But when my mom picked up, her response made my stomach drop, made my heart sink to my toes. "Oh, honey," she said, her voice dripping with that familiar let it go tone. "Just let it go. It's their special day. You don't want to make things awkward, do you?" I couldn't believe it. They knew. They knew what Jake and Emily had done, and they didn't care. Not one bit. That's when it hit me. A cold, hard realization. I was completely on my own. No one was going to stand up for me. No one was going to demand justice on my behalf. And that's when I decided, if they wanted a wedding without me, well, they weren't going to have a wedding at all. I sat there, staring at my phone, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. For months, I had been Jake and Emily's personal wedding planner, their financial backer, their emotional support. I'd spent countless hours watching them plan, offering advice, covering deposits, making sure every single detail was perfect for them. I had gone above and beyond, stretching myself thin, ensuring they had the most magical day possible. And now, after all that, I wasn't even invited. Not only that, but the way they dismissed me like I was some distant acquaintance instead of family made my blood absolutely boil. I could have understood if there were genuine budget restrictions or a venue capacity issue, sure. But I was literally the one funding everything. There was no excuse. This was pure, unadulterated disrespect. I needed time to process. I put my phone down and just sat in silence for a long, long time. At first, it was just a dull ache of profound hurt, a crushing sadness. But as the minutes ticked by, that sadness slowly, irrevocably hardened. It transformed into something else entirely. Something sharp, something dangerous. They thought they could use me. They thought they could get away with it. They were wrong, dead wrong. In that moment, a quiet resolve settled over me. I wasn't going to let this slide, but I wasn't about to throw a tantrum or beg them to reconsider or make a scene. No, that's exactly what they expected me to do. Instead, I was going to be smart about this. I started by gathering all the information I had. Since I had paid for literally everything, I still had access to all the contracts. The venue, the catering, the florist, the photographer. I had been the primary point of contact for most of these services. And since all the payments had come directly from my account, that meant one very important thing. Everything was still in my name. A slow, meticulous plan started to form in my mind. The wedding was still a few weeks away. That meant I had time. Time to make sure that when the big day finally arrived, things wouldn't go exactly as Jake and Emily had so arrogantly planned. But first, I needed to do some digging. I scrolled through social media, looking at their posts about the upcoming wedding. Sure enough, their small and intimate guest list wasn't so small after all. Dozens of people were commenting, expressing how excited they were to attend. Friends, extended family members, even coworkers. So I didn't fit the vibe, but all these people did? That was all the confirmation I needed. My resolve solidified. I took a deep breath, pulled up my emails, and started making a few phone calls. First on the list, the venue. I picked up the phone and dialed their number. A polite woman answered. "Hello, this is Willowcrest Events. How can I assist you?" I kept my tone calm, professional, almost disarmingly polite. "Hi, I'm calling regarding the upcoming wedding for Jake and Emily on the 17th. I'm actually the one who made the booking, and I need to discuss some changes." "Of course," she said, unsuspecting. "What changes would you like to make?" I paused for a moment, letting the anticipation build in my own mind, letting the sweetness of impending justice wash over me. "Actually," I stated, my voice steady, "I'd like to cancel the booking entirely." There was a short, stunned silence on the other end. Then, she responded, a hint of confusion in her voice. "Oh, I see. Just to confirm, you're the one who made the payment and signed the contract, correct?" "That's right," I affirmed, a tiny, satisfied smirk playing on my lips. The contract is under my name, and since I won't be attending the wedding, I've decided to withdraw my support. I understand there's a cancellation fee, but that's fine. She hesitated. Well, since you're the contract holder, you do have the right to cancel. However, the deposit is non-refundable. That's completely fine, I assured her, my voice unwavering. Just go ahead and process the cancellation. Also, please make sure that any communication regarding this comes directly to me. I don't want anyone else making changes on my behalf. She agreed, and after a few minutes of confirmation, the venue was officially canceled. Point one down. I hung up the phone, a wave of pure satisfaction washing over me. But I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. Next up, the catering. Jake and Emily had planned an extravagant menu. Multiple courses, an open bar, a ridiculously elaborate cake. They had raved about it for months, describing every dish in agonizing detail. But once again, I was the one who had paid for it. I called the catering company and repeated the same process. Hello, I'm calling regarding an upcoming event I booked for Jake and Emily. Unfortunately, there's been a change of plans and I need to cancel the catering services. The woman on the other end asked if I was sure. We're just a couple of weeks out, so there will be a cancellation fee. I understand, I cut in smoothly. Go ahead and cancel everything. After a few more minutes, it was done. The caterers were no longer preparing anything for the wedding. Point two down. I smirked, but I wasn't finished. Not until every single thread of their grand illusion was pulled apart. The florist, the photographer, the decorations. I went down the list, one by one, methodically canceling everything. Each call felt like reclaiming a piece of my dignity, like I was systematically undoing every ounce of manipulation Jake and Emily had tried to pull on me. By the time I was finished, the entire wedding, this extravagant dream-come-true event, had been reduced to nothing but an empty slate. An empty venue that they no longer even had access to. Now all that was left was to sit back and wait. Jake and Emily had no idea what was coming. The days leading up to the wedding were eerily quiet. Jake and Emily hadn't reached out to me at all, which told me one thing. They were completely unaware that their entire wedding had just been erased. I had to admit there was a small, mischievous part of me that wondered when they would figure it out. The venue, the catering, the decorations. Surely someone had contacted them by now, right? But no, and I wasn't going to warn them. I wasn't going to give them a single hint. Instead, I waited. Then, the night before the wedding, my phone rang. It was my mother. I debated letting it go to voicemail, letting her stew in the chaos I knew was coming. But curiosity, that irresistible pull, got the better of me. I answered with a casual, almost too calm, "Hey, Mom." The first thing I heard wasn't her voice, but chaos. Shouting, panicked voices in the background. And then my mother's sharp, breathless tone. "What did you do?" I leaned back in my chair, a slow, satisfied smirk creeping onto my face. "I don't know what you mean." "Don't play dumb," she snapped, her voice laced with panic. "Jake just called me. You want to check on the venue, and everything is gone. No decorations, no tables, no setup, nothing. The staff told him the booking was canceled." I feigned surprise, a perfectly crafted gasp. "Wow, that's weird. Maybe you should ask whoever actually planned the wedding." Silence. A loaded, heavy silence. Then she spoke again, quieter this time, her voice filled with a dawning horror. "You canceled everything, didn't you?" I didn't even hesitate. My voice was clear, unwavering. "Of course I did. I paid for it. It was in my name. And since I wasn't invited, I figured, why should I pay for something I'm not welcome at?" There was a sharp, audible inhale on the other end. "You ruined your brother's wedding." "No," I corrected, my voice calm, almost detached. "He ruined it. The moment he decided to cut me out after taking advantage of me. I just made sure he faced the consequences. Another voice broke through the chaos in the background. It was Jake. He was yelling at someone, furious. What do you mean we have no food? The caterer canceled. What the hell is going on? I could practically hear his world crumbling around him. I checked the time. The wedding was supposed to start in less than 12 hours. Guests would be arriving soon, expecting a lavish event. But they would be walking into nothing. I almost felt bad. Almost. My mother was still sputtering in disbelief. You really did this? Yes, I said simply. And I don't regret it. Before she could say another word, I hung up. Now all that was left was to see how the disaster unfolded. The morning of the wedding arrived, bright and clear, a stark contrast to the absolute chaos I knew was unfolding. I could already imagine the sheer panic at the venue. Jake and Emily, showing up bright and early, expecting a picture-perfect setup, only to find a cold, empty space. No chairs, no flowers, no food, no music. Just an expensive, hollow room with nothing inside. I poured myself a cup of coffee, settled into my favorite armchair, and scrolled through my phone, waiting. And then, like clockwork, the messages started pouring in. Jake texted, "What did you do? You ruined everything. I hope you're happy." Emily texted, "You are beyond selfish. You knew how important this day was for us." I took my time before responding, sipping my coffee, savoring the moment. Finally, I typed back a single message. "I wasn't invited, remember? Didn't seem like you wanted my involvement, so I just followed your lead." Silence. For a while at least. Then my phone rang. It was Jake. I let it ring out. It rang again and again, persistent, desperate. Finally, after the fourth time, I picked up. "Let me guess," I said dryly. "Something wrong with the wedding?" His voice was shaking with pure, unadulterated rage. "Do you have any idea what you've done? People are arriving in a few hours. There's nothing here. No food, no chairs, no flowers." "Oh, wow. That sounds terrible," I said, feigning the most melodramatic concern I could muster. "Maybe you should ask the person who actually planned the wedding." "Oh, wait, that was me." He let out a sharp, choked breath. "You did this on purpose." "Of course I did," I said, my voice calm, steady. "You expected me to pay for everything and then just accept being tossed aside like I was nothing. You used me, Jake, and you thought I'd just take it." I could hear Emily's voice in the background, panicked, speaking to someone else. "Can we get another caterer?" "Anything." And another voice, a wedding planner perhaps, answered, "Not at this notice. Everything's booked solid." I could practically hear the blood draining from her face. Jake's voice dropped to a desperate whisper, completely stripped of his usual arrogance. "Please, we can fix this if we just get the venue back. Maybe we can." I cut him off, sharp and precise. The venue was my contract, remember? And they were fully booked for months. "So, yeah, that's not happening." He let out a strained, defeated breath. And for the first time, there was something in his voice that hadn't been there before. Genuine panic. Real fear. I let that silence linger, savoring the moment. Then, just as I was about to hang up, I gave him one final parting shot. "Next time, don't take advantage of people who actually care about you." And then I hung up. But the story wasn't over yet, because what happened next was even better. I sat back, my fingers still lingering on the phone screen, a deep feeling of satisfaction spreading through me. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I had control of the situation. Jake and Emily's little world was about to collapse, and I was going to watch it all unfold from the sidelines, knowing I'd played my part. But the real chaos started to hit as the morning wore on. I started receiving messages from friends and family members who had been invited to the wedding. "Aunt Karen, 8:05 a.m. What the hell is going on? I just got to the venue, and it's like a ghost town." "Uncle Ray, 8:12 a.m. Hey, we got here early for the wedding, There's no one here. Did they cancel? What's going on? The more I read, the more the gravity of the situation hit me. It wasn't just Jake and Emily who were affected. This was spiraling completely out of their control, and people were starting to talk. I had to admit, part of me felt a little gleeful, a wicked satisfaction. But that feeling quickly shifted as I realized the scale of the disaster. All of their friends, their family, none of them had any idea that this was coming. I began to feel the slightest pang of guilt. These weren't just strangers. These were people I knew, people who had traveled from out of town, people who had taken time off work to celebrate. Sure, Jake and Emily had treated me like a doormat, but was this really fair to the rest of the guests? Then again, I couldn't help but remember. I remembered how they had treated me, how Emily had openly laughed when I suggested I be part of the planning process, how Jake had made those callous comments about me not fitting the vibe of their wedding, which I was paying for. No, they deserved to feel this. They absolutely did. I checked my phone again, and the messages kept coming in. Aunt Karen texted, "They're trying to fix it. They said the caterers are on their way now, but the venue is still empty. What's going on?" Uncle Ray texted, "Everyone is starting to leave. No one knows what's going on." I couldn't help it. I had to respond. I replied to Uncle Ray, "I heard the wedding was going great. Such a shame. But hey, I'm sure it'll work out. Maybe they'll find some food or a chair somewhere." It was petty, I knew, but it was so incredibly satisfying to watch the mess ripple through the family. By now, I was starting to realize something. This wasn't just about getting back at Jake and Emily. This was about something bigger, something that had been building for years. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how much of my life I'd spent putting up with their selfishness, their entitlement. The more I thought about everything I had done for them, only for them to completely disregard me at the first opportunity. And now they were finally reaping what they had sown. But the icing on the cake was still to come. The day dragged on. I kept checking my phone, watching the disaster unfold from the comfort of my apartment. The messages kept coming in from family, and at first, they were all filled with confusion. But soon the tone shifted. Aunt Karen texted, "I'm hearing rumors that the wedding is officially canceled. No catering, no setup, everything just gone." Uncle Ray texted, "I think they called off the whole thing. Everyone's heading home. This is crazy. Is this real?" I couldn't help but smile at how quickly things were unraveling. The idea of Jake and Emily having to explain this to everyone, how it was supposed to be the happiest day of their lives, and now it was a full-blown catastrophe, was so satisfying. But as the day wore on, something unexpected started happening. Jake and Emily's calls became more frequent, more frantic. At first, I ignored them, letting them ring out. But then, I saw the desperate text from Emily. Emily texted, "Please, just tell me you didn't cancel everything. I'll beg you. I'll do anything." Her tone was raw, pleading. This wasn't the smug, self-righteous Emily I knew anymore. Now, she was just someone desperate for help. But why should I give it to her? Why should I be the one to fix the mess that was entirely of their making? Still, I didn't answer immediately. I just let her stew in her panic, letting the full weight of their consequences sink in. Then, about an hour later, Jake texted me. Jake texted, "We're getting married at City Hall today. We need you to help with the venue and food. I'm sorry for everything I said. Please, you're the only one who can fix this now." The irony wasn't lost on me. They literally fired me from the wedding weeks ago, and now they were begging me to clean up their mess. I could feel the tension building in my chest. Was I really going to just let them scramble around, realizing the full weight of their mistake? Or was it time for me to finally take the upper hand? I couldn't resist. I replied, "It's a bit too late for that, don't you think? Maybe you should have treated me like family instead of some second-rate guest you could toss aside." Silence. No response. And then Just as I was about to close my phone, the call came in. Jake's voice was quieter this time, almost defeated. Look, we're sorry. We're really, truly sorry. But the venue won't let us rebook it, and there's no one else to turn to for the catering. Please help us. I could hear the panic in his voice, but there was something else too. Something I hadn't anticipated. They were desperate, yes, but so was I. As I listened to Jake's shaky voice, I felt a tug of something unfamiliar, a profound sense of power. Here he was, pleading with me for help after everything they'd put me through. After all the dismissive comments, the exclusion, the way they treated me as though I were invisible. Part of me, a very strong part, wanted to hang up, walk away, and leave them to face the bitter consequences of their actions. They deserved it, didn't they? They had been selfish, manipulative, and ungrateful. And now, they were finally feeling the sting of their own rotten choices. But there was something else, something deeper that I couldn't ignore. I had always been the one to clean up the messes they made, always the one who gave without getting anything back. I had spent years being the quiet one, the one who didn't rock the boat, who kept my feelings to myself. But this time I wasn't going to fix their mess. Not unless I got something significant in return. Jake, I said slowly, my voice measured, cold, deliberate. I'll help, but you're going to owe me big time. And I'm not talking about the money. There was a long pause, filled with an almost palpable dread. What do you mean? His voice was low, almost too afraid to ask. I said, letting the weight of my words settle, you're going to have to make things right. No more treating me like a nobody. No more excluding me. No more pretending I'm not important to this family. You're going to owe me respect from now on. And you're going to make it clear to everyone that I'm not just the one you use when things go wrong. Silence again. I could almost hear the wheels turning in Jake's head, as if he were weighing the value of his pride against the very real, very public humiliation he was facing. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely a whisper. I can do that. I'll tell everyone. Just please, help us. We need you. That was all I needed. The satisfaction of knowing they were completely cornered, that they had no choice but to admit they needed me, that they were utterly dependent on my goodwill. I'll get things together, I said, a sense of finality in my voice. But remember this moment. You don't get to treat people like trash and expect them to always pick up the pieces. I hung up, a rush of triumphant satisfaction coursing through me. The venue was ready to be set up again, but now there were terms. And the real payoff was going to come when I got to see the look on their faces when they truly realized what had happened. But as I prepared to head over, one final message came through. Emily texted, "Please, we'll be forever grateful. Please make this right." I paused before responding, taking a moment to savor the profound power I now held over them. I replied, "You'll be grateful when I say you will be. See you at City Hall." With that, I left my apartment, ready to make my way to the wedding. The stage was set, and now it was time for the final unforgettable act. But there was still one thing I hadn't expected: how this would all truly end. When I arrived at City Hall, the atmosphere was far from what you'd expect for a wedding. Instead of joy and celebration, there was a palpable sense of awkwardness hanging in the air, as if everyone knew something wasn't quite right, but couldn't put their finger on it. The small crowd gathered in the lobby looked profoundly uncomfortable, standing in hesitant clusters, whispering among themselves. Jake and Emily were standing by the front desk, looking more like two people who had just been through a war than a couple about to get married. Their eyes were bloodshot, their faces pale and drawn. They saw me as soon as I entered, and their faces lit up in a strange mixture of raw relief and nervous apprehension. "Thank you for coming," Emily said, her voice shaky, almost a plea. "We really, truly appreciate it." She looked at me, her eyes begging, as if I were some kind of savior who had descended from the heavens. Jake, ever the prideful one, didn't say much. He just offered a curt nod, his eyes avoiding mine, as if he couldn't quite bring himself to admit how badly they had messed up, how dependent they now were on me. I walked toward them slowly, deliberately, taking in the suffocating tension that filled the room. There were no flowers, no grand decorations, no elaborate anything. Just a sterile room with a few uncomfortable chairs and a judge standing stiffly at the front. It felt more like a courtroom than a wedding venue. I approached the small group of guests who had managed to make it to this impromptu, stripped-down event. They all gave me tentative smiles, but no one was exactly thrilled to be there. Everyone had expected a wedding fit for a grand celebration, but instead, they were left in an uncomfortable limbo, unsure of what was going on or why everything had been canceled. As I took my seat, a quiet glee settled in the pit of my stomach. This was it. Jake and Emily had built their entire day, their entire public image, around their carefully crafted vision of the perfect wedding. And now, it was crumbling right in front of them for all to see. The ceremony began. The judge went through the usual formalities, his voice monotonous, but no one was truly paying attention. Emily kept glancing at me, hoping for some sign that everything was going to magically turn out okay. Jake, on the other hand, seemed to be stewing in his own frustration, no doubt cursing the day he had ever pushed me away. But then, just as the vows were being exchanged, something utterly unexpected happened. The door to the room opened with a soft click, and a familiar face stepped in. It was the catering manager from the original venue, the one where the lavish wedding was supposed to take place. Everyone in the room turned to look, and for a brief moment, there was complete, stunned silence. Jake's face drained of all color. Emily's mouth went dry, her eyes wide with dawning horror. "What are you doing here?" Jake asked, his voice cold, laced with a desperate fear. The catering manager walked directly to the front, his expression unreadable, and handed Emily a large, official-looking envelope. "I think you'll want to see this," he said, his tone flat, devoid of any warmth. Emily tore open the envelope, her hands trembling uncontrollably as she pulled out the contents. Her face shifted rapidly, from confusion to shock, then to a burning, incandescent rage. It was a cancellation notice, a formal legal document from the original venue, showing that their booking was in fact voided. The contract had been terminated due to unpaid fees, and a substantial fine had been added for the breach of contract. The catering manager spoke up again, his voice carrying in the silent room. "You're lucky I came here to let you know. You should have paid attention to your obligations." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the shocked faces. "But hey, I guess that's what happens when you treat people like they're disposable." It was at that moment, standing in front of a room full of people who had seen it all unravel, that Emily finally broke. I thought we were going to get married today," she whispered, the raw realization sinking in, her voice dissolving into a heartbroken sob. Jake's face turned crimson. He stepped toward the catering manager, his anger flaring. "This is your fault. You were supposed to keep everything together." But the manager didn't flinch. He just met Jake's furious gaze with a steady, unyielding stare. "You should have been more responsible." He turned to leave, but not before delivering one last, cutting remark. "But hey, I guess that's what happens when you treat people like disposable." I watched the entire scene unfold, feeling every single ounce of satisfaction creep in, spreading through me like a warm wave. Jake and Emily had been so sure of themselves, so utterly convinced that they could manipulate everyone and everything around them without consequence. And now, here they were, with the walls completely closing in, their perfect day crumbling to dust before a captive audience. But the most satisfying part? They had no one to blame but themselves. As the catering manager walked out, I caught Emily's eyes across the room. There was a long moment of quiet understanding between us. She looked utterly defeated, her smile gone, her confidence shattered. For a split second, I almost felt a flicker of pity for her. But then I remembered. I remembered everything that had led up to this moment. Every dismissive glance, every cruel word, every instance of their blatant disrespect. And no, they didn't deserve my sympathy. They didn't deserve anything. The judge, sensing the unbearable tension, awkwardly cleared his throat and finished the ceremony as quickly as he possibly could. No one clapped when they were declared married. In fact, the guests filed out almost immediately, as if desperate to escape the toxic atmosphere, leaving Jake and Emily completely alone to face the raw, inescapable consequences of their actions. I walked out of the room slowly, my heart pounding with a strange mix of triumph and bittersweet finality. The day had been an absolute roller coaster of emotions, but in the end, I knew I had made the right choice. I had finally taken control of my own life, and I had made them pay dearly for their disrespect. As I stepped outside, into the fresh air, I couldn't help but smile to myself. It had been the perfect revenge. And as for Jake and Emily, they would never, ever forget the harsh lesson they learned that day. Some things, like respect and kindness, once discarded, can never truly be bought back.